So we've looked a little bit at privacy and security, and we've seen how it's really sort of difficult in some ways to maintain one's privacy in today's day and age. What are some things we can do to protect our privacy so that less information about us is out there? Well, some of that stuff is pretty obvious. You just don't want to share too much on social networking sites because eventually that can come back and make it bite you, right? Like if you're going for a job, it could end up in a background check, or it could give somebody online who has malicious intentions the tools, the information necessary to steal your identity or something like that. So you just want to make sure that you take steps to protect your privacy and be circumspect about how much information you share and where you share it. And then of course there's also that realm where it is absolutely impossible unless you go live in the mountains to live a life where information about you is not gathered because we all engage in civic activities to one degree or another. And that gives information out about us, whether it's just employment, earning a wage, or paying our taxes, or purchasing property, or getting married, or getting divorced, or having children. All that stuff starts creating records. And of course, then sharing information online just adds more info about you that's out there. So what are some of the things we should think about when protecting our privacy? This article just came out today, and it talks about how LinkedIn, a really large social networking site with more of a business spin on it, like who do we know in the professional arena, introduced a new feature that allowed LinkedIn to see all of your emails. So all of your emails would be routed through the company LinkedIn, and they would be able to read those emails and then forward them on to their intended destination. And it's known as a man-in-the-middle attack in hacking, but they just called it a feature for all of their clients. And they're saying that this would be something that allowed them, I'm not quite sure what their justification was, but allow them to know you more and present your profile better to other people. But it's just kind of an interesting thing to look at called intro. They call it doing the impossible. Some might call it hijacking email. Why do we say this? Consider the following. Intro reconfigures your iOS device so all your emails go through LinkedIn servers, right? And so I'm not actually totally sure why they want to offer this feature, what their justification is. I was just looking through the article, see if there's anything in there. But it's really interesting because they're a really big company and they're offering all their clients this new feature where they could read all of your email to know you better. So, you would really be like, okay, I'm not so sure I want to let a company do that. But it's kind of hard to know what all the different companies are doing out there. So some of the things we can do to protect our privacy is just first of all think about who has the information and how is it being used. That's like the first issue. And the next thing you want to make sure is that you protect high-risk personal data. So the most personal data would be like social security number, driver's license, date of birth, mother's maiden name, credit card, yeah, absolutely. Probably best not to take a picture of it and put it online, but also don't worry too much about handing it out or using it online because you have that protection under the Truth in Lending Act. So just be circumspect about what information you share. And I know I've already said that. When you use forms online to send information, you want to make sure it says HTTPS, like up here, HTTPS. And often there'll be a little lock icon right here to show that it's secure. I'm looking for it right now in Google Chrome, but I don't see it. So just make sure it says HTTPS, and there's the lock. There's the lock. It means it's secure. Not all websites have that, right? So here's HTTP, and they're asking for some pretty critical information there. When you get rid of hard drives or computers, make sure you wipe, scrub, or destroy the hard disk drive in that computer to get rid of all the personal information. Formatting it will not delete the information, even though when you say I want to format this drive, it says all files will be lost. That's not true. So you can use a program like Derek Spoot Nuke to delete all of the files securely on a hard drive. You want to be careful of auction frauds, scams, spoofing, and phishing. What is all that stuff? Auction fraud, when an item purchased through an online auction is never delivered or the item is not specified by the seller, that would be auction fraud, right? And so, I don't know, then that's not too big of a big one. You just look at eBay user ratings and things like that. But different scams are out there. Some of the scams are like, spoofing or phishing. And so phishing would be if they send you an email and it looks legitimate like this. Hey, it looks like it's from PayPal. Click this link to verify your account. And you click the link, but then you enter your information, and later you find out, that wasn't PayPal and somebody hacked your account. Well, so phishing is when they send you these emails which look official but they're not, and spoofing is when they spoof the website. They make a website that looks just like PayPal's website, but it's yeah, it's a fake PayPal website, and it might even say PayPal up in the browser, but that's because they've done a little coding trickery. So never click a link in an email. That's what you should take from this. Never click a link in the email. You also want to make sure you have secure passwords. And so secure password, these are the most common passwords right here, right? And you should not use common passwords. Tips for creating password: random sequences of numbers, should be long, 7 or 14 characters, should never contain dictionary words or proper names, should contain alphanumeric characters and special characters, right? So if I wanted to create a password, that might be a really good password right there. I need maybe a capital letter. Right there. That'd be a great password. And then tips for keeping them straight. Right. I could just they say don't write your passwords down, but good luck committing that to memory. I'd have a piece of paper that I would keep secure, and I'd write that down and just keep that secure somewhere. And make sure I know where it is, make sure it's locked, and if it disappears, have some way to see. It's just hard. It's just hard. I create an acronym for my password, so I actually do memorize my crazy password, and then I would say, like this is for, this is for this website, right? For eBay, let's say I use the FRS password, and that would be here, and then I might even throw in, like, E here and AY there, right? Which would be eBay, right? So then I'd use this at every website, but I'd only be changing the E part and the first letter of whatever website I'm at and the last 2 letters of whatever website I'm at. So that's one way you could have secure passwords and keep track of them. That's how I do it. Of course, not with that password. All right, so malware, spyware, and viruses. Malware just stands for malicious software, and spyware, viruses, they're all kind of interchangeable. Spyware means it's software that's spying on you somehow. And there's a bunch of different names for the malware that's out there: time bombs, logic bombs, worms, right? So Trojan horses, adware, viruses. Those are all just different names for malicious code, malicious software. And you don't really need to know the difference between them. It's a little interesting, like time bombs occur, they go off at a certain time. Logic bombs go off when a certain thing happens, certain logic occurs, right? Worms kind of travel from one computer to another. They worm their way through a network. Trojan horses look like, one thing, but then do another. It looks like you're installing dancing bears, but really you just installed some software which turns on your webcam and lets somebody secretly watch whatever's going on in your room. If they're bored. Spyware, some spyware, there is keystroke capture software, spyware to monitor and capture passwords and things like that. I've heard it's pretty tricky to get that to work well. Yeah, just something to be aware of. So you don't want to install any unsafe files. And generally never install exe file if it's coming from a source you don't trust. So never install any type of virus. Never install any type of software that you've just downloaded from the web and you don't trust the company it came from. So I would trust Adobe, I would trust Microsoft, I would trust like big name companies, Google, right? But I would be really circumspect if I downloaded something from some website where I'd never really heard of them and they're not a big company. You want to make sure you run the antivirus software, of course, and keep your virus definitions up to date. You could use AVG, Antivirus Free Edition. You also want to make sure that your operating system is up to date. That's if you're not on a Mac. If you're on a Mac, you don't need to worry about antivirus software. You need to also protect yourself from yourself, right? I call this the common sense update. So you just got to be careful about what you're looking at out there on the web, and what sites you're going to, and what you're downloading, and what you're installing, right? You got to protect yourself, and that takes common sense. So some safety tips for adults: don't share personal information just to random anonymous people, right? So don't put your name and address and things like that. Don't post on Facebook when you're going to be out of town, right? Nor on your answering machine at home. We're gone for the next 2 weeks. Feel free to come by and rob us. I actually know somebody who does that. You also want to use, let's see, don't reveal personal information. Yeah, all right, so that's it, really. And safety tips for children. The main one here is just like, set boundaries and guidelines for your kids and for the young people in your life, and make sure they know what is appropriate and what's not appropriate. And then also put the computers in a public location and only allow them to be on the computers when they are in the public location, like in the living room, right, or the kitchen, or an office where other adults kind of are passing and kind of see what the kids are doing. And so that's basically what you want to do with kids. And tell them never to give personal information. If anybody asks for a request or asks for personal information online, never give that out. Just looking here. Well, you could pause this and read it if you want to read about those protecting against other .coms. So identity awareness, right? So you just want to be aware, and we're just hitting some of the same points over and over about what you share and where you share it, and that at any time anybody could be filming you. And yeah, so just have kind of an awareness that that's the world we live in now. And that any information you share, right, can end up in an employee background check or, as part of an electronic digital profile view. You also want to know that email, cell phone calls, and texting, none of those are private, right? So to various degrees, it might be difficult to access your email and your cell phone calls and your text messages. But, people have access to that. And it just depends upon who. Your phone company certainly has access to it. And is the government getting access to it? Who else is getting access to it? Is your phone company selling it? Who knows, right? And then just know that there's computer monitoring software, right? So anywhere that you go to work or anytime you're on a public computer, you can pretty much assume that your boss is able to look at whatever you're doing at any time on your computer. So that's computer monitoring software. So anytime you're in a public location or employers, know that the computers are being monitored, right? And that all employers will track their employees. This call may be monitored for quality assurance purposes, right? That's kind of an interesting deal. This call may be monitored for quality assurance purposes. Like I was speaking with somebody on one of those phone line call things, and they had this call may be monitored for quality assurance purposes. And I said, okay, good. Well, we're recording on our end too for quality assurance purposes. And the person on our line said, are you really recording this call? Because if so, I need to hang up. And I was like, really? Why? And she's like, if you're recording this call, I need to hang up. Are you recording this call? And she got really serious. And I was like, no, I'm not recording the call. And she's like, okay, good. Then we can continue talking. It's like, why do you guys get to record me, but I can't record you? And the same thing happened when I was at Target the other day. I was returning something, and a clerk was helping me, and she said, okay, you'll get an email with your refund. And I was like, all right. And I raised the phone. I snapped a picture of her. And she kind of looked at me. I go, I took your picture. So if, the money doesn't show up, I could show whoever here, this is who I talked to. They said they'd help me. And she's like, oh, okay. And then, a little bit more talking with her and everything. They're trying to get the return processed. And then the manager's like, I talked to you for a minute. He's like, you need to delete that photo. I was like, really? Why? And he was like, well, it's just protecting the privacy of our employees. I was like, okay. But it seems kind of strange that if I go into Target, Target gets to record me, right? Target's recording me on their cameras, but I can't record Target on my camera or Target's employees, right? So it's just kind of an interesting deal, interesting world we live in. And also when I was at the hospital, I was taking pictures, when we were having our child and recording videos. And at one point they're like, you can't take pictures of that. I was taking pictures of what medicine was being given. And the machines, I wanted to get like their heart rate because they don't want the pictures to come back and prove negligence, which is also kind of why I was wanting to take them, right? So I could, if anything ever did come up, I could be like, well, I got these photos, let's take a look at them. And so, it's a whole new interesting world where a lot of places want to be able to record, but do not want to be recorded, right? So that's kind of the game that's being played now. Identity theft is when your identity gets stolen. So again, never give out that high-risk personal information. I know there's some redundancy in here. It's just like a massive topic. So Social Security, mother's maiden name, username, password, birth date, account number. You want to make sure you shred documents and shred real-world mail that comes in. Don't place sensitive outgoing mail in your mailbox, and watch your bills and your credit report. right? And have strong passwords. It's all really good stuff to protect against identity theft. We've learned about phishing and spoofing. Farming is kind of like when you're, well, let's see what, I'm not totally sure. Let's see what the web says about farming. Farming is an attacker's attack intended to redirect the website's traffic to another bogus site. Interesting. And DNS poisoning. That's kind of interesting. Let's look at that. DNS poisoning, DNS spoofing is a computer hacking attack whereby data is introduced in domain name, system name, servers, cache. Interesting. All right, social engineering, that's one way of hacking, right? So, you know, in one of the videos they talked about, you know, hey, you're working in an office and somebody comes in and says, oh, I just spilled coffee on my resume. I have a job interview just a couple doors down. You mind if I print my resume? Will you please put this USB stick into your computer and print my resume? And that would be social engineering, right? Like you're socially engineering somebody to do something so that you could get into their system by having them put an infected USB drive into their computer. So that's what that would be. Finally, malware, viruses, spyware, Trojan horses, logic bombs, time bombs, worms. To protect yourself, have antivirus software. Keep antivirus software up to date. Make sure your operating system is up to date. And that's if you're not on a Mac. If you're on a Mac, you don't need antivirus software. Use what you deem to be the best browser, Chrome. So you want to make sure you use the best browser, which I believe is Chrome. Scan devices you plugged into other computers. Be careful what you download and install. Be careful what websites you visit. Don't use Yahoo email. Use Gmail. Yahoo email sucks. Never click links in emails. Literally, you get more spam and virus crap in there. Never click links in emails. Never open email exe attachments, and exercise caution with other attachments. Don't use pirated material. Don't use porn sites. Have a junk computer with nothing important on it if you are going to do that, and have backups of your important data. So that's just a little bit about keeping yourself safe online and common sense updates. If I had to boil it down, right, because I kind of just covered a whole bunch of stuff talking really quickly. If I had to boil it down, I would say, you know, make sure you take a look at all this stuff right here, and particularly these things right here and some of the steps that you could take. And be aware of what you share. Be aware of what you share. That would be the other thing. And also know that you got that tool that you could record at any time. And you could do it surreptitiously, right, if you need to, right? There's ways that you could just be kind of sly about recording. And so if I had to boil it all down, you know, be aware of what you share online. Be aware of what you share online, and be aware that other people might be sharing things about you. And have strong passwords, and, you know, yeah, it's just kind of a whole different world. All right, so that's a little bit about, you know, protecting yourself online and protecting your privacy, and not sharing too much, and keeping yourself safe while you're online.